prayer that was written by Rabbi Eli Sarah. Eternal One, we've gathered to mourn. 20 years after the armistice that ended the war that was supposed to end all wars, another devastating conflagration was ignited, even more deadly, with hatred in its heart, hatred for the Jewish people. On this, the 83rd anniversary of Kristallnacht, as we reflect on that terrifying night of violence unleashed against the Jews of Germany and Austria, and the deportations, incarcerations, and mass murder that followed, we ask for courage, hope, and strength. We ask for hope so that we can hope for a better future and that we have the capacity to hope. Hope that overcomes fear and cynicism, despondency and despair, so that we may yet see that change is possible. We ask for strength to confront the evils of injustice all around us and to build alliances to bridge the divisions between nations and peoples, religions and cultures, genders and sexualities, so that we may work together to repair the world. Kain Yehi Ratzon, may this be your will, and may it be our will. And let us say, Amen.
Could you do me a favor? In my office. Oh yeah, hang on, hold it. I'm gonna go get something from my office to hold that.
Again, welcome. I wish we weren't here to talk about this, quite honestly, but we use the phrase, we can't forget a lot in my lifetime now, and obviously your lifetime, and this is so important to me and all of you that we don't forget, and we're grateful to have many people here that survived, and that's one of the things that keeps me going, is knowing that we're here together, and it's an amazing journey to get here. I'm going to give you a little bit of a history of what happened 83 years ago, November 9th, 1938. Violent anti-Jewish demonstrations broke out across Germany, Austria, and the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia. Nazi officials depicted the riots as justified reactions to the assassination of German foreign official Ernest von Rapp, who had been shot 2 days earlier by Herschel Grenspan, the 17-year-old Polish Jew distraught over the deportation of his family from Germany. Over the next 48 hours, violent mobs, spurred by anti-Semitic exhortations from Nazi officials, destroyed hundreds of synagogues, burning or desecrating Jewish religious artifacts along the way. Acting on orders from the Gestapo headquarters, police officers and firefighters did nothing to stop the destruction. All told, over 7,500 Jewish-owned businesses, homes, and schools were plundered, and 91 Jews murdered. An additional 30,000 Jewish men were arrested and sent to concentration camps. Nazi officials immediately claimed that the Jews themselves were to blame for the riots, and a fine of 1 million Reichsmarks, about $400 million today, was imposed upon the German Jewish community. The Nazis came to call the event Kristallnacht, Crystal Night, or the Night of Broken Glass, referring to the thousands of shattered windows that littered the streets afterwards. But this does not convey the full brutality of the event. Kristallnacht was a turning point in the history of the Third Reich, marking the shift from just anti-Semitic rhetoric and legislation to violent, aggressive, anti-Jewish measures that would ultimately culminate with the Holocaust.
huh? They have it.
The glass shattered. The long night began. We found no sanctuary, no shelter where we ran. Our homes became prisons. Our schools were all closed. Our comfort became memory. Our security bulldozed. Into that darkness, our hearts quickly sank. The fires, the chambers, the smoke that was rank. The weight that we lost just made room for more. Crowded so closely together, our bed belonged to four. Long ditches were dug. Those who succumbed piled high. There were mounds of gold fillings that grew tall toward the sky. Too many were set there, and few days to remain.
Can't hear you.
Those families are gone, leaving memories of disdain. Yet we are still bearers of life's broken dreams. We must never forget them, nor the evil, nor the schemes. With each year that passes, it seems somehow less true. For how could someone do this
Thank you.
to them, or me, or you? We stand here now as one people, having survived, having risen above. And must we always remember that in the end, hate never overcomes love. This is a headline from the New York Times of November 10th, 1938. Jews are ordered to leave Munich. Fine shops are wrecked. Munich, Germany, November 10th. All Jewish families were ordered this morning to leave Munich within 48 hours and were instructed to inform the political police by 6 p.m. when they would hand over the keys to their dwellings and garages. Instructions were issued to confiscate all Jewish-owned cars, and the sale of gasoline to Jews was forbidden. In some cases, Jews were told they must leave Germany, and they were forced to sign a statement to this effect. No notice was taken of this objection that most Jews were without passports. The only Jews with passports are those who have already made preparations to emigrate. The news of the death of Ernest von Rath in Paris was a signal for a reign of terror for the Jewish community in Munich, which began with the wrecking of shops during the night and continued with incendiaries during the morning and wholesale arrests and notices of expulsions during the day.
Crowds filled Main Streets. Large crowds filled the main streets this morning to gaze on the destruction wrought in last night's riots, the full extent of which was visible only by day. How Fingerstrasse, one of Munich's main streets, looks as it had been raided by a bombing blade. A half dozen of the best shops were converted into wreckage overnight, with plate glass windows splintered on the pavement, shelves torn down, and goods lying broken and trampled on the floor. So far as can be gathered, every Jewish-owned shop in town was completely or partly wrecked, as well as several Aryan businesses which shared the general fate for having previously belonged to Jews. And Orthodox synagogue was set on fire early this morning. The alarm was raised about 8 a.m., but the flames caused much havoc before they could be controlled. The synagogue was reduced to a shell, and the Jewish school adjoining it was also completely burned. It was reported that synagogues in Bamberg, Beirut, and Treuchtlingen were also burned. Arrests of male Jews began at their home at an early hour. It was estimated that so far about 400 have been taken into custody, and also a half dozen women.
At the hand of anti-Semitism, creator of all, source and shelter, grant a perfect rest under your tabernacle of peace. To all those whose lives were cut off by violence, acts of witless aggression, and calculated anti-Semitism, we remember their wisdom, talents, and skills, joy, laughter, and tears. We remember the works of their hands and the message of their hearts.
Let these memories continue to bless us, even as we pray for them to find peace in the world to come. Remember the virtues of those who died at the hands of malice in every generation. Bless the righteous of all nations who provide protection, shelter, and comfort to our people. Put an end to anger, hatred, and fear, and lead us to a time when no one will suffer at the hands of another. May the memories of those lost be sanctified with joy and love.
I'm going to read a poem called Resistance. This was written in February of 2000 from a student, Jessica Barenblum, who was a high school student in Cold Spring Harbor in Long Island as part of an Adopt a Survivor project for Rosie. For Rosie. Resistance. Rosie tells us of the past with a set jaw, while her hands are furiously capping and uncapping a hotel pen. She is afraid that we will not listen, that we won't understand, afraid that we will forget her story. But we do listen, and we try hard to understand. And I will never forget what life did to her, what the world did to her. I will never forget her eyes, her face, the deep channels worn into her skin by tears, tools held by a sculptor's steady hand, slowly chipped away at her childhood, the broken pieces of her life gathered on the floor, along with those of so many others, to be swept away like stone shavings in the sculptor's studio. The sculptor has the power to bend, mold, shape, or break. They wanted to break her, to whittle away at her dignity, her hope, until there was nothing left. But Rosie set her jaw, and she built a life from shattered pieces.
This is an excerpt from Klaus Leiber's
diary from November 11, 1938.
He was a 14-year-old living in Essen, Germany. At 3 o'clock, the synagogue and the Jewish Youth Center were put on fire. Then they began to destroy Jewish businesses. During the morning, private homes also were being demolished. Fires were started at single homes belonging to Jews. At 6:30 in the morning, the Gestapo came to our home and arrested father and mother. Mother returned after about 1.5 hours. Dad remained and was put in prison. We returned to our neighborhood by 2 o'clock. Not far from us, we saw a gang vandalizing a home, throwing things out of the window. When I ran around the corner and looked up the street, there was nothing to see. It looked peaceful. I, therefore, returned directly to our house. When I turned into the front yard, I saw that the house was damaged. I walked on glass splinters. I ran into our apartment and found unbelievable destruction in every room. It was the same in the apartment of the caretaker below us. Mother and grandmother were there. My parents' instruments were destroyed. The dishes were broken. The windows were broken. Furniture upturned. The desk was turned over. The drawers and mirrors were broken, and the radio smashed. The kitchen and the bathroom were untouched. The upstairs room was also left alone, including my father's cello. The cellar also was not disturbed.
In the evening, Mother brought gold and other valuables for safekeeping to Christian acquaintances. We wanted to spend the night at home. But the caretaker urged us to go to her relatives where we spent the night. I read until late. In the middle of the night at 2:30 a.m., stormtroopers, also known as brown shirts, smashed windows and threw stones against store shutters. After a few minutes, they demanded to be let into the house. Allegedly, they were looking for weapons. After they found no weapons, they left. After that, no one was able to go back to sleep. Everyone sat in one room. I tried, but could not sleep. After a while, I went back to where they were sitting and found they had dozed off. The time passed terribly slowly. Then we thought there was still another person in the house who was making noise. Finally, at 5 a.m., I saw a policeman outside who walked back and forth. I shall never forget that night. Books could be written about all that had happened and about which we now begin to learn more. But I have to be careful. A new regulation was issued that the Jews in Germany had to pay 1 billion Reichsmarks for restitution. What for? For the damage the Nazis had done to the Jews in Germany. I shall return to that subject later. My room will stay as it is. I am not going to go to school as long as Dad is not at home. I now want to get to Israel as quickly as possible.
We remember them, by Solan Comas and Rabbi Jack Reinhardt. At the rising of the sun and at the going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of the winter, we remember them. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. At the beginning of the year, and when it ends, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live. They are now a part of us, as we remember them.
When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joy and praise to share, we remember them. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember them. When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now part of us, and we remember them.
I am going to read a few words written by the late Professor Elie Wiesel, one of my heroes. He was an Auschwitz survivor. He wrote many books on the Holocaust and on the subject of Judaism in general. He wrote books on the Torah. Very learned man. He traveled all over the world to lecture and to educate people on the subject of the Holocaust. Here are some of his words. How can we speak unless we believe that our words have meaning, that our words will help others to prevent my past from becoming another person's past and other people's future? Yes, our stories are essential to memory. I believe that the witnesses, especially survivors, have an important role. They can simply say, in the words of the prophet, I was there. What is a witness if not someone who has a tale to tell it and is ready to tell it? Without memory, there is no culture. Without memory, there would be no civilization, no society, no future. After all, God is God because He remembers.
We're now going to open up if anybody wants to say anything or speak.
I'm a survivor. Not only am I a survivor, I was there when it happened. I saw it with my own eyes. I was 10 years old when I lived in Frankfurt in Germany. And that's when they burned the city synagogues on November 9th. The flames shot up, it was unbelievable. There were about 5 synagogues in the town. They all went up in flames. The one where my parents were, the one where my parents were going to, now there stands a big memorial with all the names from Frankfurt who were sent to the concentration camps and did not come back. Among them, the name of my brother, Heinz Ansbacher. who was 17 years old. And he was sent out by himself and never came back. And that was the beginning of the Holocaust. After 2 years, it started that they sent people away to the concentration camps. I was sent away with my parents 4 years later in 1942. I don't know if I should go in all this because it has nothing to do anymore now with my younger nine. But it was the beginning, and we were sent to the camp called Theresienstadt, where my parents were sent because my father had lost an eye in the First World War fighting for Germany. Oh, I forgot. On November 10th, they came, all the men were arrested. My father was sent to the concentration camp Buchenwald, where he stayed for 2 weeks, and then they sent him back again because he was a veteran of the war. But when it came to send him away, my parents and I went to Theresienstadt, where thank God they survived, because when 2 years later, when I was sent to Auschwitz, they wanted to go with me, and I said, no, do not go with me. Please stay here. I'm young, I was 16 years old, and I hope I'll survive. And I did survive, barely, because I was liberated in Bergen-Belsen amongst the last one of the camp where I stayed. I been sent from there on a ship to Sweden because I was very, very sick, and I recuperated there. And I was there over a year, and after that I came here to the United States to see my parents again. And I lost uncles and aunts, cousins, 5 cousins, 2 uncles, 2 aunts, 5 cousins, 2 aunts who were not married. They were all gone. But I came here, I got married, and we started it all over again. And now I have 5 grandchildren, and I have 6 great-grandchildren, and we will survive. The Jewish people will survive. I understand the 5 million have been replaced. Thank God. That's it.
Would anyone else like to speak?
I'm not technically a survivor, but I feel that I've always felt that I am, because my grandfather brought my mother to this country in 1913 from Hungary. The following year, less than a year, World War I broke out, and the rest of the family could not come. Finally, in 1921, my father went back and brought the rest of my mother's siblings. However, my grandfather had been one of 11 children, and they all perished. Those who were mostly married and had children. We tried to figure out about how many people that would have been, but it's countless, because we're not counting all the children and the grandchildren, that following generations that would have survived. So in that sense, I feel very fortunate that my grandfather came, made the decision, and came when he did.
Thank you. Thank you. I did not plan to say anything because I was one of the lucky survivors. I came here in America. I arrived in 1936, in 1937, I think it was. I was about 6 or 7 years old. After I came here, I one day said to myself, I want to see what this democracy is like. What is a democracy? What can I say here? So with any further ado, I grabbed a guy who was sitting with me on this train, not knowing that he was there to protect me and save me from doing anything that could happen to me, because I was one of the very, very, very fortunate survivors who lived through this terrible time. But I said, no, I'm one of the lucky ones. We were able to get out of Germany just in time. We arrived in Hoboken, what was it? I can't remember, All Fools Day. The holiday November. Anyway, on Holocaust Day. Anyway, we got out and we were safe in America. And one day, I even walked a distance, grabbed somebody sitting with me, and I spoke to FDR and also to his wife, who was a wonderful lady, tremendous memory. And she assured me that we Jews and any other people like us could always have a home in America. And this assured me, and I have memorized this time in my mind. And really, when it comes to the November Day Holocaust, I will always remember that day, what happened in Eisenach and Kassel. Of course, I lived in both of those cities, in Eisenach for a couple of years, and in Kassel for a couple of days. And we survived it. And now here I am here. And thank God we have a country like we live in, where Jews, Gentiles, makes no difference. It's not what people they are, not what their religion is, only that they have the mind to appreciate how lucky we are to be alive and live in this great country of ours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
As you know, Mom will tell my story. I survived. I was a victim once. Never again. Be a victim again. And the Jewish people are never going to be victims again.
We're all here today to commemorate a horrible, horrible incident that happened. But we all should remember that anti-Semitism started long before Kristallnacht. And we have to do something to stop anti-Semitism before it overtakes things. I don't know what we can do. We're all too old to do much. But we've got to remember to remind our young people, the schools, everything that we can possibly do to stop and help stopping anti-Semitism. I do whatever I can. Whatever contributions I don't make, I always make those contributions. That's all I can do now. But there are a lot of people who can do more. You may know them, you may be able to talk to them. Remember, anti-Semitism started and it wasn't stopped. And that's why all these horrors took place.
My name is Andy Silverstein. I am the younger son of Michael and Lillian, so I am second generation. My two children, Jacob and Ethan, are here, third generation. I have a older brother who has children, and his children have children, so they are fourth generation. And what strikes me, and we've heard it so many times in the different readings, is the importance of remembering and making sure it doesn't happen again. And that obligation is on second, third, fourth generation, and all of us. And I think it's events like this that are so important to make sure that we continue to remember and do what we can.
We're going to invite everyone up now for anyone who is a survivor or lost people. So please come light a candle. Anyone who would like to light a candle for everyone lost, please feel free to come out. That's not taking long.